Hello, my name is Anne. Welcome to my channel, In Search of Wonder. And today we have my weekly wrap-up. It is Sunday night, and I have already finished 2 books. Ooh, better than last week. So, one of them was really short though, and the other one I was almost finished. I didn't have very much to read in it today. So, but quick recap of those 2 books. I finished The Last Christmas in Paris by Hazel Gaynor and someone else who co-wrote it with her, actually. I apologize, I forget their name. And it was very good. It was an epistolary novel and set in World War One. And most of the letters being exchanged are between Evie, who, and both of these are like, Evie is nobility. I think she's Lady Evie Elliot. And then, I don't know if the guy, Tom Harding, I know he's a lieutenant in the army, but I don't know if he has a title. But anyways, they're wealthy, like, you know, English nobility on some level. And so they're exchanging letters during World War One, and they've been lifelong friends, grew up together, etc. So it was very well written. As I mentioned in my last week wrap up, I felt like the letters rang true. They weren't like some epistolary novels can kind of fall into the trap of writing so much about the story that would not have been written in an email. I mean, in a letter. There weren't emails. Letters would not have been written in a letter. But I feel like for the most part, like 90% of the time, I felt like, you know, these letters would have been written. There was one way that they kind of got around that a little bit was the girl. She was like an aspiring writer, and she dabbles in journalism through the story as well, writing a column and stuff. So they include her column, first of all, but it's not really a news column. It's just a editorial column. But also because of her plans to be a writer, and that gives them a little leeway that her letter writing is a little more literary than, you know, maybe the average person would be. So maybe a smart move. If you're going to write an epistolary novel, make one of them be a writer. That gives you a little wiggle room. But it was very good. The story was very compelling. It just kept me reading, and I wanted to read to the end. Even though like the characters are apart from each other most of the time, there's still enough of a sense of action and things happening, and that you want to keep reading and find out what is going to happen with them. So it was very good. There was a little bit of cussing. It wasn't, I don't know, it didn't reach my threshold of being like, ugh, I'm not gonna finish this book. There was just some in there, so just good to know. If you want to avoid that. But otherwise, other than that, I would say pretty clean. And yeah, that was very good. I'm glad I left it till just after Christmas. So technically, you know, we just wrapped up Epiphany and everything. So it's perfect. I finished it within the 12 days of Christmas, almost within the 12 days of Christmas. So it's pretty good. And then I read Small Things Like These, which is also set at Christmas time. By Claire Keegan, this time in the 80s in Ireland. And the first thing I want to say about this book is that it made the 80s feel like that was a time long ago and far away. But I'm just saying, I was around in the 80s, so it couldn't have been that long ago, right? Right? It wasn't that long ago. It just felt like a historic setting. And yet I lived through it. Not in Ireland, grant you. In America, in Maryland. But yeah. Anyway, that was interesting. Definitely got vintage vibes of a time past. Except for the odd mention of Queene or Freddie Mercury or jeans, wearing jeans, you know. But even that's, you know, any time in the past century. Anyways, yeah. So otherwise it could have been like in the 50s, what happened in the story. But also that kind of brings me to my next point. The main thing that the story is about is something called the Magdalene Laundries in Ireland, which were run by the Catholic Church but sponsored by the state. And they lasted for like 200 years until 1996. And here's the thing that makes that kind of shocking, is that the premise is not a bad premise. So it started in the 1700s for girls who ended up finding themselves pregnant one way or the other, and or dismissed from their employment due to some kind of immorality or whatever. It provided a home for them and a place for them. The idea was that they would stay there for a couple of years, earn a trade or learn a trade so that they could make a living and support themselves and or their children if they had children. So it started out as a good plan, but it eventually, what happened was a good thing became a very bad thing. And from what I've been able to see in my brief, quick research on it, it just kind of became like those orphanages you read about in, you know, the stereotypical orphanages where the kids are basically enslaved, and whoever is running the orphanages like lords it over them, like Miss Hannity, you know, is that her name from Annie? You know, anyways, that kind of person running the orphanage, but there are none. And so the girls were made to do the most menial of labor, like the whole entire, like all hours of the day. They were fed scraps of food, awful food, barely enough to nourish them. Well, not really to nourish them, but just enough to like keep them going. They were separated from their children. Their children were not taken care of. One of these Magdalene Laundries had 796 babies die in a matter of years. It might have been decades, a couple of decades, but it was within the 20th century, a span of a few decades, I think it was. 796 babies died there just because they were not taken care of. They were not given proper medical care. They were not given food or nurturing of any kind. So these were awful places. These were supposed to be charities, but they became something much more like enslavement. So that's one of the things that this story, well, the main thing that this story is about. And so I don't want to say any more to spoil the story, but it was interesting. I did not know anything about those until I read the book. And yeah, the last one closed in 1996. And the public really did not know about them until like 1992. Like, didn't really know what was going on in there. Didn't know. Like, couldn't believe, I guess, is probably more accurate, until it became a truth so obvious that it had to be confronted. It was a short story. So, I mean, a lot of people call it a novella, but my copy that I read from the library was only like 84 pages. To me that feels like a short story, but I guess it could be a novella. And so it's, you know, I find a lot of good short stories, like they pack a punch and like they're powerful. But they also leave a lot of questions. They don't have time to answer all the questions that they ask. Not every novel answers all the questions that it asks either, but it does raise a lot of questions and it doesn't answer all of them. And the ending is unsatisfactory. But overall, it was really good. The prose was very nice. It was, you know, it's modern, contemporary. I much prefer classic prose, like from a classic novel, or in a more classic style. But this was more of a spare kind of prose. But it was very good. I enjoyed it. So those are the two books that I've read so far. I need to finish Death of the Nile next. And I keep forgetting to mention, I'm also going to be reading for the Protagonist Pub's book club, Veiled in Smoke, that's what it is, by Jocelyn Green, set in Chicago. Yeah, so I've started that one also. So that one and Death on the Nile are my next two to tackle, and then, well, tackle. I'm gonna read them. Yeah, and we'll see what else happens after that. That's what I'm working on right now. See you next time. So, I finally finished another book this week, and that is Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. If you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen I posted yesterday that I had 4 books in process, which is a lot, even for me. Normally, I have probably about 2 in process that I'm currently reading, 2 for different reasons. I usually try to keep either a nonfiction or a classic. In other words, a book that requires me to think, going, as well as a lighter read that I can read, at night or, when I'm just relaxing for entertainment. But I've got 4 books going now, which is a little ridiculous. But now it's down to 3 because I finished Death on the Nile. So this was only my second Agatha Christie, and I enjoyed it. I will say, little caveat, that mystery, detective stories, not my favorite genre, generally speaking. Hence, I have made it to the ripe old age of 43, having only read 2 Agatha Christie in my life. Not a genre that I generally pick up for pleasure reading. However, it was very enjoyable. My previous Agatha Christie that I read was Murder on Orient Express, which I think I read earlier last year. So I did enjoy it. I really liked that it wasn't just, and not that there's anything wrong with being just a detective story or a murder story, a murder mystery. It's not just that, though. There is a lot of, in this one, more so, I feel like, than in Murder on the Orient Express, although I could be wrong because it's been a while since I read that and I don't have very distinctive memories of it. But I feel like there was a lot of exploration of things besides the murder that happened. Things like greed and love, examples of true love and false love, kind of being explored here. The actual murder, I was surprised, did not take place until at least 35% of the way through the book. Maybe even more than that. I was expecting it to happen like any minute, and it kept not happening, and life just kept going on for everybody. And then boom, once it happened, then the story moved really fast. So up until that point, it actually was kind of hard for me to be involved in the story. I was reading it in the evenings and I kept falling asleep. And not that it was super boring, mostly just because I was tired. But at the same time, I wasn't like trying to keep my eyes open to read it because I really wanted to read it. It just wasn't compelling enough until the last 25 to 30% of the book. And then I really wanted to finish it, but it was late last night. I was really tired. So I finally finished it this morning. First thing when I woke up. Anyway, it was very good though. I really enjoyed this one. I don't know. I think that overall I probably like this one a little better than Murder on the Orient Express, although I really loved the setting and the unique storyline and the unique way that Murder on the Orient Express wrapped up. So a toss up here. But I did enjoy it. And like I said, I love that it wasn't just about the murder itself. There was more going on. Like you get more into the lives of these various characters and their motivations and the things that are making them tick and how they're thinking and feeling about different things. There's a lot more commentary on the human condition, if you will, in this story. And I also really, I love Hercule Poirot in this story. I feel like maybe because I was paying more attention, or maybe it just is more so in this book. I feel like I got a better understanding of who he is and why everybody loves him so much. Because a lot of people, you know, he's like the favorite part about Agatha Christie for them. One of their favorite characters. And I understood why after reading this one, because he really is a delightfully drawn character. And I love how he's not like your jaded, hardened detective, you know, who's seen the worst of mankind and is just, you know, brusquely trying to solve the case and, you know, a little cynical. He's not like that at all. He's very caring, and he has a great deal of insight into the human psyche, and he's just very compassionate and considerate of people, and just a really cool character. So I really liked Hercule Poirot in this story. Enjoyed it very much. I think I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. So that was a good one. I am still working on Fierce Wars and Faithful Loves, book 1 in the Faerie Queene book series by Edmund Spenser. And I'm about halfway through. I finished the 6th canto at work the other day. And so it was, it's good. It does require definitely some thinking, just because the language is archaic and there's a lot of symbolism and imagery, and you have to read through the footnotes and everything. I am thoroughly enjoying the footnotes by Roy Maynard. Humorous and amusing and really helping me. I wouldn't be able to understand this story without his help. So thanks, Roy. Good job. The other books that I have going are Fool, F-U-L-L, by Asheritah Ciuciu, which I love her name, first of all. I think her last name is Bolivian, or maybe Brazil. Maybe her husband is from Brazil. Anyway, it's spelled C-I-U-C-I-U. It is the first book I have read by her. I am listening to it on audio as whenever I'm in the car by myself. And again, I'm about halfway through that one. I'm reading it because every year in January, at least for the past few years, I do a 40-day sugar fast with Wendy Speak on, she's on Instagram. And she's like a Christian speaker, author, etc. if you are not familiar with her. And she has a devotional book that goes with the 40-day sugar fast, which I can show you. This is the book, which I read a couple years ago, the first time I did her 40-day sugar fast. And she does it every year in January. And there's a group on Facebook that you can join, and she will send emails and stuff if you sign up for it. And it's really great to do that in community. That first year was the only year that I really did it, like kept up with the readings, which this is an excellent devotional book that you can do any time of year, whether or not you're doing it with the group. This is a really good devotional book. This year, when I did it, I decided not to read this devotional again. The foreword in this book is written by Asheritah. And I remember really being, when I read the foreword of this book a couple of years ago when I first did the sugar fast, and I was just blown away by the depth and the writing in the foreword by Asheritah Ciuciu. So I had been wanting to read her book Fool, but I hadn't gotten around to it, and I decided this year in the sugar fast, it's a good time to read it. So it's all about what she calls food fixation. It's about making sure that food is not an idol in your life in any way. And she goes through the different ways that food can be an idol in your life, and instead how to be full with the love of Christ, with worship for a God, with love for God. How Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled." So it's all about filling yourself with the fullness of God rather than empty things like food. It's a very convicting, and I'm enjoying listening to that. When the only time I can listen to audiobooks is when I am in the car by myself, because if I am at home and I have an audiobook on, people are always interrupting me. I don't know what it is about turning on an audiobook and putting headphones in my ears. All of a sudden, everybody needs me like instantly. So I give up. I don't do it anymore. So I do it in my car when I'm driving by myself, which is usually a couple times a week that happens. So anyways, it'll take me another week or two to get through the other 50% of this book. But I am enjoying it. Then the last one that I am working on is Veiled in Smoke by Jocelyn Green, which is the Protagonist Pub's January pick for her book club that she is running on the app Fable. So I highly recommend joining. You can still jump in anytime. It will be going the whole month of January. We will be discussing this book. There in the app, there is once you join her book club, which, by the way, if you had tried to join it, but you were turned away because there wasn't any room, she fixed that problem. So now there's room for whoever wants to join. They can join and participate in the conversation. She and Taylor from Tales and Treats with Tay and myself have been chatting on there about what we've read in the book so far. I guess I'm probably about 25-30% of the way through this story. It was heavier than I expected. I mean, I knew it was set in Chicago during the fire, so that's, you know, already a hard topic. But there are so many layers on top of that, of stuff this family in this story is going through. There is mental illness, there is suspicion of murder, there is the loss and destruction of their home due to the fire, there's grief that they haven't all worked through, and things just keep happening. It's a lot. So, but I am enjoying reading it. It's definitely engrossing. That is on my Kindle. And I'm kind of reading it, you know, like when I'm riding in the car and it's dark outside, and that's my reading option. Or if I'm on the go, probably at some point when I get far enough into the story where I need to keep reading and want to find out what's happening, I will, you know, finish it all the way through, but that will probably be at some point this coming week. So that's what I have in progress. As far as my mid-month checkup goes, check-in, something. As far as how I'm doing with my January TBR, I'm a little frustrated with myself, to be honest. I mean, frustrated. It's just books. It's not like, you know, life or anything. But let's see. So I haven't read anything yet for the 3 challenges that I am doing every month. I have not yet started Hound of the Baskervilles, which is my book for Chantel's Read Your Shelf Challenge, because Death on the Nile was my December read for that challenge for last year. And it was the only one I hadn't read yet. So, I mean, I had otherwise completed that challenge. So I wanted to finish that challenge before I started the 2024 challenge. But now I have to read this before the end of January. So that is my Read Your Shelf Challenge. I will start that this week. Then A Girl in Winter by Philip Larkin for my What the Dickens Facebook book club. And I also have not started that one, but I do need to get started on that because the discussion will be the last Tuesday in January. So I need to get started on that. And then for the Tea and Ink Society, funny story. So I said in one of my previous weekly wrap-ups in my January TBR or whatever, that for the Tea and Ink Society Reading the Classics Challenge, the book for January was supposed to be an author you've never read before. I don't know where I mixed everything up, but it's actually the complete opposite. It's supposed to be a reread. Oops. Well, you know, I don't know. I'm not rereading anything. I'm reading a book by an author I've never read before. That's what I'm doing for that challenge. So, oops. Anyways, and I'm halfway through. So, I will finish that one, even though it's not actually the challenge, but we're just going with it. And then I have finally finished all of my December leftovers, now that we're 2 weeks into January. Finally. And I have not started on any of my just for fun, nonfiction, and fiction reads. So I will probably start on that this week. I still have a couple weeks left in January. I guess I can read 1 or 2 of them at least. So that is how my January reading is going. How about you? Are you making your way through your January TBR? Have you given it up and you're just mood reading? Another question. I have for you. Are your January reads mostly heavy, or mostly like heavy as in dealing with heavy topics? Or are they lighter, more fun reads? Because I was just now making another video that will go live on Tuesday, hopefully. And I was realizing that a lot of books that are set like in wintry settings definitely deal with very heavy topics and have much more of a gloomy outlook than books that don't have a distinctively wintry setting. So that just makes me think, makes me wonder. I'm just curious. Are your reads happy, cheerful reads, or are there some heavy-hitting, gloomy reads in your January TBR? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you next time.